Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today's topic of discussion is hypothalamic and pituitary hormones. We will discuss it in two parts. Today is part 1 of these hormones. So what are the hormones? Hormones basically are the chemical substances synthesized by specific endogenous glands and secreted directly into the bloodstream, and they act far away from the site of their production and release. This is very important. And then they act on the specific target organs. Chemically, hormones can be classified into 7 major classes. You can see here I have enumerated 7 classes in which your all types of different hormones falls. This is just for your information. And our gonadotropin releasing hormones, which we are going to discuss in this chapter, these are basically neuropeptides. What are functions of hormones? Basically, hormones do growth and differentiation, maintenance of homeostasis, and number 3, reproduction and functional integration. Pituitary gland, often called as master of endocrine orchestra, and its functions are primarily controlled by hypothalamus. You have read in detail in your physiology in second year. Pituitary gland functions are controlled by hypothalamus. Moreover, you have already learned that the pituitary gland consists of 3 different lobes: anterior lobe, adenohypophysis, intermediate lobe, and the posterior lobe, that is called neurohypophysis. This is just for your repetition, and you should know the physiology of anything that when you are going to start pharmacology. They are not regulated by negative feedback. They are regulated by something else. We are going to discuss in the next. You can see here, first of all, from hypothalamus there will be releasing of certain factors called hypothalamus releasing factors or releasing hormones. These hormones or these factors stimulate the anterior pituitary, and then anterior pituitary produce and secrete certain tropic hormones, and these hormones then stimulate the target glands to secrete further hormones, and these hormones then act on the target organ, and then these target organ can give negative feedback signal to pituitary as well as hypothalamus. Here is you can see hypothalamus. I am going to take my laser pointer. You can see this is hypothalamus. You can see from hypothalamus there is release of growth hormone releasing hormone, TRH, corticotropin releasing hormone, and gonadotropin releasing hormone, thyrotropin releasing hormone. These hormones act on the anterior pituitary. They come anterior pituitary, and the anterior pituitary then secretes and release growth hormone, thyroid stimulating hormone, adrenocorticotropic hormone, luteinizing hormone, and follicle stimulating hormone. These hormones act on different tissues, like growth hormone will act on liver, bone. Similarly, thyroid stimulating hormone will act on thyroid. Similarly, this luteinizing hormone or follicle stimulating hormone will act on other tissues like ovaries, testes, and then they act on target tissues. You can see from posterior pituitary 2 hormones are releasing: oxytocin and ADH. These hormones act on target tissues. So what are the pharmacological applications? Number 1, they may be used as replacement therapy. They are antagonists for excess production of pituitary hormones. They may be used as diagnostic tools for endocrine abnormalities. Here you can see every hormone is controlled by a short negative feedback loop. This is short negative feedback loop, and it may be controlled by a long negative feedback loop. You can see the growth hormone releasing hormone is being released from hypothalamus. It acts on somatotrophs and the somatotrophs release growth hormone, and this growth hormone acts on liver and produces certain effects, and these are the IGF-1. It can control this release of growth hormone by negative feedback loop. Similarly, there is growth hormone releasing hormone, inhibitory hormone. It also acts on these somatotrophs and it, it causes the release of this growth hormone. Similarly, you can see here thyrotropin releasing hormone from the hypothalamus which act on thyrotrophs, and TSH is being released which act on thyroid, and thyroid then performs certain functions, and this is also negative feedback control. This is short feedback loop and this is long negative feedback loop. Similarly, you can see all these hormones act on different body parts and their control is done by a negative feedback. Now is the growth hormone. Growth hormone is regulated by action of growth hormone releasing hormone released from the hypothalamus. I have already shown you. Now there is a synthetic analog of growth hormone releasing hormone. It is called sermorelin. It is used as a diagnostic agent for testing the pituitary growth hormone secretion in cases where we are suspecting that the child is short stature and where is the lesion, where is the pituitary. So you can use this sermorelin for testing of the pituitary growth hormone secretion. Side effects: flushing, injection at the site, pain, dizziness, hyperactivity and urticaria. Now is the somatostatin. What is somatostatin? Somatostatin is growth hormone releasing inhibiting hormone. Growth hormone release inhibiting hormone. What it does? It inhibits secretion of growth hormone. Number 1. Number 2, it inhibits thyroid stimulating hormone, insulin, prolactin and glucagon. So you can see that somatostatin is controlling the secretion of how many hormones. Okay, so basically somatostatin is an inhibiting hormone, growth hormone release inhibiting hormone. It will inhibit the secretion of growth hormone, but as well as it will control the inhibits the thyroid stimulating hormone, insulin, prolactin and glucagon. What it is pharmacological uses? It is used to prevent the acute bleeding due to esophageal varices. Number 2, it may be used to control upper GIT bleed from hemorrhagic gastritis from intestinal or pancreatic fistula. Similarly, we can use this somatostatin in hypersecretory tumor of intestinal tract. But there are certain limitations to use of somatostatin. What are these? Number 1, it has very short half-life. Number 2, it is not specific for its receptors. Number 2, growth hormone rebound after discontinuation occurs when you stop this somatostatin. Now here is the other drug which is called octreotide. Basically, octreotide is the long-acting analog of somatostatin. I have told you somatostatin have certain limitations. Number 1, that it have very short half-life. For this reason, we have developed octreotide, and it is 45 times more potent than somatostatin. It is useful in acromegaly. In acromegaly, there is large release of growth hormone, so patient is growing large and large. So in this case, we use this somatostatin analog that is called octreotide. And what is somatostatin? Somatostatin is basically growth hormone releasing inhibitory hormone. So we use it in acromegaly. Similarly, we use it some hormone secreting tumors and bleeding esophageal varices. It is also used in treatment of AIDS associated diarrhea in Cushing syndrome and insulinoma. Adverse effects with octreotide are abdominal pain, nausea, gallstones. Long-term therapy may lead to conduction defect and vitamin B12 deficiency. Then is the lanreotide. Similarly, it is also long-acting analog of somatostatin. It is similar in action and specificity to octreotide, and it is usually indicated for pharmacotherapy of acromegaly. Next drug is pegvisomant. Pegvisomant is polyethylene glycol complex mutant growth hormone that binds to the growth hormone receptor. That is, it is bind to the growth hormone receptor but does not trigger signal transduction. Okay, point is here. It binds to the growth hormone receptor but does not trigger signal transduction. So it acts as a growth hormone antagonist. So we can use it in the treatment of, it is approved for the treatment of acromegaly due to small pituitary adenoma, that is secreting more growth hormone releasing hormone, and so more growth hormone is being released. So we can use in acromegaly, which is due to small pituitary adenoma, this pegvisomant. Pegvisomant, what it does, it acts as a growth hormone antagonist. It binds to the receptor but does not trigger signal transduction. The next hormone is the prolactin. Basically, physiologically, as you know, prolactin causes growth and development of breast during pregnancy, as well as it promotes proliferation of ductal as well as acinous cells in the breast and induces synthesis of milk proteins and lactose. After parturition, prolactin induces milk secretion. These are prolactin physiological functions. How its secretion is regulated? Prolactin is under predominant inhibitory control of hypothalamus through prolactin releasing inhibitory hormone. Okay, prolactin is under control of hypothalamus through prolactin releasing inhibitory hormone. Dopaminergic agonists like dopamine, bromocriptine, cabergoline, they decrease the plasma prolactin level. I think so you have already learned these dopaminergic agonists in a separate chapter. So here is that these agonists decreases the plasma prolactin levels. Now is the dopaminergic antagonists like chlorpromazine, haloperidol. These are antipsychotics. Metoclopramide, you have learned it in your gastrointestinal tract, and it increases the stomach motility. And similarly is the dopamine depleter, that is rezapine. These drugs causes hyperprolactinemia. Always remember which drugs decreases prolactin level and which drugs increases prolactin level. You may be asked why what question. Prolactin levels in the blood are low in childhood and they increase in girls at puberty and are higher in the adult females. A progressive increase occurs during pregnancy and it usually peaks at term, that is about 30, after 37 weeks of pregnancy. High prolactin secretion is maintained by suckling and it falls if breastfeeding is discontinued. Stress, exertion and hypoglycemia also stimulate prolactin release. Hyperprolactinemia is responsible for galactorrhea, amenorrhea, and infertility syndrome in women. It means that a typical prolactin level is needed for the normal body function. If it is going to increase, it can produce these galactorrhea, amenorrhea, and infertility syndrome in women. In male, it causes loss of libido and decreased fertility. That is, in both male and female, a typical level of prolactin is needed for normal body